Yo, what's going on gamers? It's Ryan 6 Days a Week, and welcome to episode 3 of the Underkeep devlog, where we're going to be talking about the magic and casting systems, as well as how they're designed and how they fit into the greater picture of the Underkeep. And don't worry, this video is not just going to be a bunch of slides. I'm actually going to go over a couple of the spells I've introduced into the game, as well as the current progress on the game itself. So let's jump right into the philosophy of magic and my design approach regarding the whole system. In the Underkeep, your access to and mastery of magic is primarily based on your character's class and subclass choice. But this does not mean that you're locked out of magic if you choose a martial class to start. It's my goal to make all these traditionally martial classes have at least one magic focused subclass. This doesn't mean that they'll be able to master and control these forms of magic, but they'll have access to these as part of their subclass kit and further define their unique playstyle. For the already magic innate classes, they'll actually begin their class journey as just a generalist magic user and have access to lesser spells. Subclassing down the line gives them access to a very specific magic form, which we kind of talked about in the first video. I believe we used the Fire Mage subclass of the Wizard as an example. And no, this does not mean that all classes will have access to the same lesser spells. It just means that as a general idea, the classes will be fairly weak in all magic types until they subclass and focus in on a singular magic type. But what are the magic types found in the Underkeep? Well, there are 4 elemental magic types, fire, water, earth, and air, and 3 fundamental magic types, arcane, holy, and dark. All other forms of magic derive off of these 7 base magic types. Now, for the sake of balance, these kinds of magic relationships are going to be more important to understand in PvE than PvP. PvP, magic resistance and bonuses will be more general, though you can build specifically in different elements and fundamental magic types. It won't be as crucial as PvE. For many of the endgame bosses and challenges, you will feel a noticeable benefit from using the correct magic type. I won't go as far as to say that certain magic types will be required for certain content, but I will say you will be rewarded for preparation. Locking you out of certain parts of the game just because you chose a specific subclass is never my intent or goal. For magic power, or how strong you can become as a magic user, if you go for general stats, you'll have a relatively low ceiling on how strong you can be. If you go for form-specific magic power, you'll have a much higher stat ceiling. I know I've repeated the idea a number of times already in this video, but I do believe that for there to be very unique and specific playstyles, there has to be trade-offs. This line of thinking is not limited to just function when I was designing this system, but it extends to form. So the stronger you are, the more specific your gear is, the more easily other players will be able to read your build and playstyle. I want this part of the game to be just about intuitive to the players, which is why I'm very cautious in adding in art and why it's taken me so long to integrate art into the game. Because for one, it needs to fit thematically, but there's a balance component that needs to be considered with every visual. Alright, now let's take a look at something a little more exciting. Let's take a look at the Cryomancer subclass of the Wizard. I'll show off a couple of spells here, but I am going to keep a couple of things hidden. A lot of things hidden actually. It's pretty exciting. I've made to that point in development where I'm working on things that I do want you to discover on your own when you get around to playing this game in the future. I'm really looking forward to that day. Now I gotta remind you again, what you're seeing here is just a work in progress. All these visuals are subject to some major improvements, especially the UI elements, so all these icons, and a lot of them are going to be the same, are just placeholders, and incredibly basic. What I can say is a little more complete are the systems that drive these visuals, like that Radial Select or Spell Wheel that you saw. Spells in the Underkeep are going to work a little bit different than what you're used to. The amount of spells that you can equip is not based on a specific stat like intelligence. It is based on how much you can cram into that spell wheel, and stronger spells take up more space. For the sake of this video and your viewing pleasure, all the spells here have been set to either level 1 or level 2. But level 3 and 4 spells will take up more space and are reserved for the major casting spell wheel. For example, Arcane Rift, the portal spell which was teased at the end of the last video, is a very strong spell and will take up half a spell wheel. This makes balancing a little bit more discreet and direct. This approach also makes it so your ability to cast spells isn't necessarily tied to gear. gear itself will just make the spells stronger. Now going back to the main discussion, the Cryomancer, you'll see that a lot of the spells here will apply some sort of debuff to the character. This debuff, or that kind of frosty smoke effect, is chilled. For those who have played any kind of fantasy game in the last decade, you already know that chilled reduces your move speed and attack speed. But in regards to the Cryomancer subclass, there are perks you can pick that heavily reward you for stacking chill on enemy players. I won't spoil the entire thing just yet, but I did base a lot of the abilities off of Jaina from Heroes of the Storm. Here we could actually see a spell-specific case of exploiting chill, in which we use Shatter Rhyme on a chilled enemy to consume the stacks of chill to deal damage and reduce armor. I am a big fan of spell combinations opposed to this spell does this amount of damage in this way. Some of the best combat experiences I have in any game and genre, whether it be melee or range focus, always force me to make decisions based on who I'm fighting, where I'm fighting them, and how many players I need to fight. Having to consider and think through all those variables and then using your tools correctly in those situations really make fights feel worth it and rewarding. Now there is certainly a risk to this since more combat mechanics mean a steeper learning curve, but this game really won't be for everyone. This isn't going to be a game that you can just pick up and find success in no matter what you do. I want to challenge you as a player. I want you to experiment with different builds and combinations and really push yourselves to learn new things. I want you to be able to look back and really understand the progress you've made as a player and not just a loot collector. Trust me, it really makes things that much more enjoyable. I mean, think back to the first video I posted about the Underkeep, when I just began working on it. Everything planned was just a plan. Now I'm finally starting to see things become realized, become actual game systems and interactions. Trust me, there's still a ton of work that needs to be done before I could even consider calling this a game, but it's nice to see how much progress I've made. And this is only devlog video number 3. I can only imagine what we're going to see in devlog number 10. Now that's going to be something to celebrate. As for the dungeon itself, some things have been updated, but some of course have stayed the same. I'm taking the approach to level design very cautiously. As you know, I want to implement as many puzzles and challenges as I can into every tile set of the dungeon, which means just about everything that appears in the dungeon should have a purpose. There shouldn't be clutter just for the sake of it being clutter. Anything that gets added has to deepen the gameplay experience, even if it's just through lore. Which unfortunately for this video means there's still a lot of empty rooms in the dungeon, but do take that as a positive since it means these rooms will be filled with purpose. And trust me here, if there's a lot of intent with design, just adding a small few things can really change the atmosphere of a room entirely. I mean, just adding interactable lights, breakable chandeliers, and pathing structures into the room from episode 2 has changed its feel and look almost entirely. It feels like a dungeon. We are very much inside of a cobblestone castle, and it will only get better over time. Again, still a lot of work to be done, code to be visualized, and art to be implemented, but we're on track for something really incredible. Alright gamers, now if you want to share some of the things that you want to see in the Underkeep, please join the Discord linked below. In here I also show some more behind the scenes kind of stuff and some footage that doesn't make it to the YouTube videos. I will say that Discord does get preference when there are critical updates to the game itself, which also includes playtest availability since it's a lot easier just to send a Discord message out than to make a whole YouTube video around it. I hope you don't get tired of hearing this, but thank you as always for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next episode.